somewhere in La Mancha, in a place whose name I do not care to remember, a gentleman lived not long ago, one of those who has a lance and ancient shield on a shelf, and keeps a skinny nag and a greyhound for racing. An occasional stew, beef more often than lamb, hash most nights, eggs and abstinence on Saturdays, lentils on Fridays, sometimes squab as a treat on Sundays. These consumed 3/4 of his income. The rest went for a light woolen tunic and velvet breeches and hose of the same material for feast days, while weekdays were honoured with dun-coloured coarse cloth. He had a housekeeper past 40, a niece not yet 20, and a man of all work who did everything from saddling the horse to pruning the trees. Our gentleman was approximately 50 years old. His complexion was weathered, his flesh scrawny, his face gaunt, and he was a very early riser and a great lover of the hunt. Some claimed that his family name was Quijada, or Quejada, for there is a certain amount of disagreement among the authors who write of this matter, although reliable conjecture seems to indicate that his name was Quejana. But this does not matter very much to our story. In its telling there is absolutely no deviation from the truth. And so let it be said that this aforementioned gentleman spent his times of leisure, which meant most of the year, reading books of chivalry with so much devotion and enthusiasm that he forgot almost completely about the hunt and even about the administration of his estate. And, in his rash curiosity and folly, he went so far as to sell acres of arable land in order to buy books of chivalry to read, and he brought as many of them as he could into his house. And he thought none was as fine as those composed by the worthy Feliciano de Silva, because the clarity of his prose and complexity of his language seemed to him more valuable than pearls, in particular when he read the declarations and missives of love, where he would often find written, "The reason for the unreason, to which my reason turns, so weakens my reason, that with reason I complain of thy beauty." And also when he read, "The heavens on high divinely heighten thy divinity with the stars, and make thee deserving of the deserts thy greatness deserves." With these words and phrases, the poor gentleman lost his mind, and he spent sleepless nights trying to understand them and extract their meaning, which Aristotle himself, if he came back to life for only that purpose, would not have been able to decipher or understand. Our gentleman was not very happy with the wounds that Don Belianis gave and received, because he imagined that no matter how great the physicians and surgeons who cured him, he would still have his face and entire body covered with scars and marks. But even so, he praised the author for having concluded his book with the promise of unending adventure, and he often felt the desire to take up his pen and give it the conclusion promised there. And no doubt he would have done so, and even published it, if other greater and more persistent thoughts had not prevented him from doing so. He often had discussions with the village priest, who was a learned man, a graduate of Siguenza, regarding who had been the greater knight, Palmerin of England or Amadis of Gaul. But Master Nicolas, the village barber, said that none was the equal of the Knight of Phoebus, and if any could be compared to him it was Don Galaor, the brother of Amadis of Gaul, because he was moderate in everything, a knight who was not affected, not as weepy as his brother, and incomparable in questions of courage. In short, our gentleman became so caught up in reading that he spent his nights reading from dusk till dawn, and his days reading from sunrise to sunset. And so, with too little sleep and too much reading, his brains dried up, causing him to lose his mind. His fantasy filled with everything he had read in his books, enchantments as well as combats, battles, challenges, wounds, courtings, loves, torments, and other impossible foolishness, and he became so convinced in his imagination of the truth of all the countless grandiloquent and false inventions he read that for him no history in the world was truer.